Hey guys, what's going on? Breeding Beast here, and today I've got something a little bit different for you. Today I thought I would go ahead and just count down my top 10 favorite Rainbow Six Siege operators. Now, for quite a while now, Rainbow Six has been a very fun game, something I love doing now, and has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time. I'm not really going to get into that. That's not important. What is important is that before I start the countdown, I do have a few disclaimers I want to talk about. The first and probably the most important being that this is all in my own opinion. If you don't agree with my opinion, that's fine. I don't really care. However, I don't want to see anything in the comments, if there are comments. I don't want to see anything like, this you don't know what you're doing. You only play casual. How can you make this list? You're already a garbage player, so you shouldn't even be making this list. This list doesn't even make sense. Things like that. I don't want to see or hear any of that. Okay. I don't mind people giving me criticism, like oh, I think, um, this person should be here, and here's why. I don't mind that at all. So the second thing is that I am not basing this on pure talent, pure skill, or based on what the meta thinks, nothing like that. I'm basing this off of what I think, my personal experiences. Obviously, things like their skills and talents will be considered, but that is how I'm going to do it. Also, I will not be including Alibi and Maestro in this, for the simple fact that they're brand new, and brand new operators are always at the top of the list. They're always broken, everyone wants to play them, and they're always fucking great. Alright? Let me see, is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else. I will have some honorable mentions right before I get to number one, so that way you guys can, if you have any questions, deal with that. And without further ado, I think it's time we start this list. Yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so at number 10, this one might surprise you a little bit, but I'm going to go with Castle. The reason Castle is mainly at number 10 is simply because he's very good at what he does. Now, a lot of you, especially you veteran players, you know that Castle is considered kind of garbage. And I won't even deny that. He's pretty bad. But one thing that Castle does greatly that a lot of people don't even consider is that Castle is great for gathering intel. And the way he does this is basically using his walls, the sound of his walls breaking to his advantage. If you put those walls in very high traffic areas and you hear something explode or you hear the wall come crumbling down, then you probably know that there's someone over there or someone in that vicinity. And as such, that makes Castle great at gathering intel. In fact, I would consider Castle one of the greatest intel gatherers in the game. I'd put him on par with, say, I don't know, Lesion. Now, the biggest problem with Castle, obviously, is that he only has 3 walls to do this. And he also lacks very good firepower. His weapons are kind of lackluster compared to a lot of the other defenders. His UMP, as much as I want it to be good, it's just the rate of fire is too terrible on it for it to be very good. Especially compared to a lot of the higher rate of fire weapons like Ash or there's better ones you can choose on defense like Mira, Ella, so just there are several better weapons. Now his shotgun's pretty good. I have no problems with his shotgun, other than the fact that it's a shotgun. It has limited range, but on defense that's not necessarily a bad thing. Another huge problem I have with Castle is that his barricades don't necessarily do the job they were intended to do, which is another reason he's all the way up here. But nevertheless, Castle is still a fantastic operator. Well, okay, I say that. He's not fantastic, but he's good for gathering intel, and he's okay with providing overwatch on the objective, which is the main reason I think Castle deserves a spot on this list. All right, at number 9, we have Mira. So since Mira's introduction into Rainbow Six, she has been arguably one of the most, if not the most, phenomenal defensive characters, and she also brings one of the biggest impacts, which is just pure sight. I mean, you can't really deny that mirrors are easily one of the most useful tools you can have as a defensive operator, being able to see where the enemies are, and then even possibly breaking it open and shooting them in the head. Now, the reason Mira isn't any higher on this list is because she's much more of a close range kind of person. And on defense, that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, a lot of the defensive rooms have long hallways. For example, Canal, you go out the room and there's a long hallway just looking down at you. That's on several different maps. You may have to look up a ways, and her little SMG, I believe it's called the Vector. Yes, I'm actually looking at the screen now. It is called the Vector. Excuse me. The Vector is while it has an enormously high fire rate, it still lacks in range, and the recoil is kind of bad on it. I will gladly admit that. I don't think the recoil is the best. I love her little shotgun. Her pistol's also quite good, but I don't generally use it just because the shotgun, I think, has a little more utility than the pistol would. And then her primary shotgun, I hardly ever touch that unless I'm just, feeling goofy. But yes, I think she is definitely worth putting on this list simply for the sole fact that she just might be the most useful defender right now. Maybe not the most fun to play, maybe not the most interesting, but she is definitely worth a try at the very least. All right, at number 8, we have our boy Fuse. Now this one, I mean, come on guys, you really thought I was going to make a top 10 operator list and not include the most explosive man in the game? Like, who the fuck doesn't like explosions? Honestly. To be completely honest, that's the only reason I even like him, is because, explosions. I know this gameplay isn't exactly, a good reference for Fuse, but I mean, shit, it especially since it's hostage. But, I mean, Fuse is just fun. His weapons are decent, especially his LMG. I actually prefer the LMG over the AK. I only use the AK whenever I either just, feel like using it, or I forget to change to the LMG. But Fuse is definitely one of the more volatile operators nowadays, and he's been here since day one, so there's no getting rid of him. And I think he's still a fantastic operator. There's really no question that he deserves a spot on this list. Alright, at number 7, we have our boy Sledge. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and that's I love the British operators. All of the SAS members, I think, are useful in some way or another. In fact, I'll even let you in on another little spoiler. Good lord, I'm sorry. There's actually 3 of the 4 SAS members on this list. Now, I feel like a big question would be, why would you put Sledge over someone, say, like Ash or Zofia? And the simple answer being, there's actually 2 reasons. The first is that his hammer, while what it lacks in range, makes up for in silence. It's so quiet. Now, granted, if you're standing next to a window and it gets busted, it's obviously you're going to hear that. But unlike Ash or Zofia, you don't hear the shot of the impact nades or of the breaching round. All you hear with Sledge is a little thump, and then the barricade comes crashing down, or the wall comes crashing down. And you do have to be fairly close to hear that usually. Now, do I think he does his job better than Ash or Zofia? It really depends on the situation. Most of the time, I would say no. Like, maybe 80% of the time, I would say no. But he still does his job, I would say to near perfection when he needs to. Now, the other reason I think he's better than Ashe or Zofia, or literally anyone with a breach charge, by the way, I feel like I should get that out there, um, is because his weaponry is just kind of, it's stupid. And I don't mean as in a bad way, I mean stupid, overpowered. Particularly the L85A2, which you're seeing on the screen now, has almost no recoil. I actually went in and did a quick little test, and it's just it's basically a small bubble. It doesn't really go very far with the recoil. And his shotgun's fun too. He's got the SMG-11 obviously, and all of this combined just makes him a fucking monster. I think he's also fantastic for brand new operators just now learning the game. And for those reasons, I think Sledge deserves the number 7 spot. Alright, coming in at number 6 is our boy Smoke. Now, like I said before, I absolutely adore the British operators, and this is just more proof of it. The reason Smoke is on this list is actually really simple. He's useful. You know, he's... I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but I think Smoke might just be the most balanced operator in the game. Now, a lot of people argue with me, no, it's Rook, no, it's Doc, no, it's Ashe, no, it's Smoke. Here's my reasoning for this. The thing with balance is you need to be able to obviously equally weigh each part of your kit together to form something great, and Smoke does this perfectly. Now, his primary SMG is pretty good, but I don't particularly enjoy it, because I think that makes him just a little bit less balanced. But his shotgun combined with the SMG-11 is just, it's phenomenal. The shotgun not only is great for close range combat, it's also great for utility. You want to make a hole without using an impact nade, or maybe you have barbed wire, use the shotgun. It's quite simple. The SMG-11 is just a fine little tool just for, you know, finishing the job, I would say. However, there is one problem with Smoke that I don't particularly enjoy, and that is his SMG-11. Don't get me wrong, I love that little gun. It's fantastic. But my biggest problem is I tend to panic a little bit, and as such, the SMG kind of falls flat for me. The recoil on it is kind of rough. You know, if you played Smoke or Sledge and you use the SMG-11, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's pretty rough. You basically just need to be able to hit that first shot. Otherwise, you're kind of just screwed. But besides that, he doesn't really have any weaknesses other than that. You know, he's also great for, you know, keeping enemies out with his, you know, toxic babes. And so there's really no reason not to pick Smoke. And, you know, that just, I really do consider him one of, if not the most balanced character in the game. Okay, at number 5, we have Thermite. This one, very similar to Fuse, is mainly just because he blows shit up. Plain and simple. You know his formula. You mix the metal oxide with the bullshit, and you add some C4 into it, and you get fucking bullshit. You know how it is. You just blow a big fucking hole in whatever the fuck you're doing. You know, and for that reason alone, Thermite makes this list. But because of that, he provides so much utility to a group. You know, straight up, as soon as you get in, one of the first things you look for is a hard breaching point for your Thermite. You go in, you put it on there, maybe Thatcher it if you need to, and blow it up. Simple as that, creating a doorway and so much utility for your team to work with. And I mean, there's not really anything more to say about Thermite. He's very similar to Fuse in that, you know, you just blow some shit up and you'll have a good time with them, honestly. And that's the only reason he even makes it onto this list, is because of his utility. No other reason. Alright, at number 4 we have Lesion. Lesion is an extremely interesting character. For those of you who don't know, his main talent is to throw out goo mines. And what these do are they stick into the enemy's legs, causing bleed damage over time until they pull it out with an initial, I think it's like 8 damage or something like that. and he can have 8 of them on the field at once. Now, what makes Lesion so great is his ability to just, similar to Castle, he can provide so much intel. You know, you throw a goo mine on the stairs like you see here, and if you hear them kind of scream, or you see the activation feed, then you know that, you know, they're probably over there. You know, you throw it at a different doorway, like maybe this one here, and then you see that one go off, then you know they're probably over there. You know, it's not that hard. Lesion is extremely useful for this, and besides the use of cameras, is probably the most useful way to gain intel, which is the reason he's this high. However, there is a downside to Lesion, in my opinion, and that's his weaponry. As much as I love his silent shotgun, it's still a shotgun. You need to be close to use that. On defense, not usually a problem, but sometimes, you know, you may need some long range, so you try out his SMG. I have so many problems with this SMG. The only good thing about it, in my opinion, is the extremely high rate of fire. However, I think the damage is not that good. In fact, I think it has the second lowest damage of any primary SMG. Second only to the P90, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but you know, it's very low. And yeah, that just makes Lesion so much less useful if you can't even use his weapons. But nevertheless, his intel gathering abilities still grant him the number 4 spot on this list, and in my opinion, it is very well earned. Alright, coming in at number 3, we have Mute. This is the final SAS member on the list, and he is definitely my favorite of the foursome. The reason I personally love Mute is because, well, for starters, I think his weaponry is great. The MP5K is fantastic for also beginners. I think it's a great gun for beginners, as it has very little recoil and decent damage. You know, enough to get the job done. His pistol is okay. It's not the worst you can have. It's certainly not the worst sidearm, and as such, you can easily make it work. But he's just such a very good operator when it comes to utility. I think he might just be one of the best. I would call him support operators on defense. Now, I initially had trouble choosing who I wanted to do this between him or Bandit, but I chose Mute simply for his weaponry and the fact that he's just so useful. Even after he dies, he's more than proved his worth as an operator. And as such, I think that Mute is definitely worthy of the top 3. Alright, at number 2, we have Rook. Now, for you more experienced players out there, this probably wasn't much of a surprise. You know, Rook, pretty much since the day this game was released, Rook has always been one of the higher picked operators, and that's with good reason. His weaponry is great. His little, I don't want to call it a ability. You know, his armor plating is super useful, and the fact that he's just meaty as fuck. I mean, he takes so many bullets. And in fact, the only reason that Rook isn't number 1 is because, well, this argument has been made several times, and I, to an extent, agree with it, but to an extent, I also don't agree with it. His armor plating is only somewhat useful. Now, if you're unaware, the armor plating, once you put it on, gives you an extra, I believe, 20% damage resistance with body shots, which is good. However, Rainbow Six Siege is designed to focus around headshots for the most part, and as such, using Rook's armor, it doesn't affect headshots at all. Headshots are still a one-shot kill. And with that being said, I think he definitely makes up for it with his weaponry, particularly the MP5. I think that is most people's choice when it comes to Rook and Doc, as they do share the same weapons. I will admit that. I'm not a fan of Doc though. But yes, I think they definitely will say, you know, if you're gonna play Rook, use the MP5. It's Even though I'm much more of a P90 fan, I will gladly agree that the MP5 is definitely more of a beginner's choice, and it's also the more balanced choice. Um, Although if you are looking for more headshots, the P90 is probably the better option, and you know you can use the shotgun. It's more of like just a. I think it's less useful than the other two weapons, but I do think it's more fun, I would say. Um, Regardless, Rook. There's a reason Ubisoft has not changed Rook, or they've changed him very little since his release, and that's because he's good. He does his job perfectly, and there's no reason to change him. And due to that sole fact that he's so good for beginners, similar to Sledge and his weaponry, I think he has more than earned his spot as arguably one of the best operators in the game. Alright, now before we get into the number one pick, I do have 3 honorable mentions I want to give out here. The first and foremost is Bandit. I think Bandit is definitely a worthy contender, and in fact the only reason he didn't make it is because in my personal opinion, he is beaten out by Mute. I know Bandit's batteries might be more useful than Mute's jammers, as they can destroy objects rather than just disable them. However, the Mute jammers have a wider radius, and in my opinion makes them more useful. Also, Bandit's weaponry, while I think it is good, I don't think it's the level of Mute. Bandit's MP7, for example, is much more. The recoil is quite worse. Excuse me. It does have a better rate of fire, but at the same time, I don't think it's quite as good as the MP5K. And a lot of people will argue with me on that, and that's fine. You can argue with me all you want, but that's my opinion. So, yeah. The next one is Doc. I felt it only right to include the biggest healer in Rainbow Six on this list. And similar to Bandit, the only reason Doc didn't make it is because I think he was beaten out by Rook. When I was initially making this list, it was difficult to put the number 10 spot. That was easily the most difficult, which I did give to Castle, but it was between Castle and Doc. In the end, though, I truly believe that while they share the same weaponry, Rook's armor is a much better ability than Doc's stim pistol. Now, don't get me wrong, Doc is certainly useful, but I think the long-term ability of Rook being able to provide that 20% damage, protection is much more important than Doc giving you a 40% heal or a 40 health heal or whatever it was. I forgot. And then my last one is Finka. Now, this one may come as a bit of a surprise, but honestly, I feel like it shouldn't. Finka is actually a monster, and in fact, the only reason she's not on the list is because I haven't put that much time into her. And if I do put more time into her, I think she could be. I think I would definitely put her somewhere on the list. From what I understand, her nanomachines provide so many different buffs, not just the 20% health and reviving anyone who's downed, but they also provide cut down ADS time, cut down reload speed. You move faster through like obstacles like barbed wire, I think. Concussions don't last as long. Echo's headache thing with his drone doesn't last as long. It provides so many buffs, and for that reason alone, I think Finka could potentially be the biggest monster in Rainbow Six right now. Not even counting the fact that her weaponry is pretty good. Her assault rifle could be a little bit better, but I think the LMG, along with the nanomachines, make her extremely dangerous. I also forgot to mention the nanomachines reduce recoil by like a hell of a lot. So, it's just fucking. It's just all that combined just makes her into just this beast of an operator. And once I put more time into her, I think I could easily put her on this list for sure. Yeah. And now, without further ado, the number one operator in Rainbow Six Siege goes to my boy Blitz. Blitz has been with me since the very beginning. You know, he's always he's made sure to make himself just even when he was garbage, still loved him. You know, he first of all he's got a shield, so he blocks almost any damage coming from the front, minus explosions. Uh, and he's just how many times have you seen or heard the Blitz running towards you, and once you notice it, you just fucking run? Like, you're fucked unless you get out of that little tight corner you're hiding in and fucking make something happen. That's how bad Blitz is. People understand that he's a monster. And, his pistol is great. I think the German pistol is just an all-around good pistol. His flash shield is just super useful. And he's just an all-around fun operator to play. I don't think that, with anything going on, it's just amazing. And like I said, they buffed him pretty hard, and so it just makes him that much more dangerous. Before he was already kind of okay, but most people considered him bad compared to other operators. And now he's like top tier compared to almost everyone. And so, with those reasons, I feel like Blitz is the best operator in the game. And he's also my personal favorite to play. Once again, just my opinion. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions on what you want to see, or if maybe suggestions on this list, you maybe missed this person, or you should move them here and why, by all means, leave it in the comments. Like and subscribe for more, because I enjoy that shit, and I will see you all next time.